Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody who is joining me live for my office hours, our September monthly office hours. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm trying something new this time around where I am streaming this to 3 different places now. If you wouldn't mind, do me a favor. Drop a message in the chat wherever you're connecting from. So I am streaming this to my YouTube channel, so on YouTube Live. I'm streaming this to LinkedIn Live, to my account on LinkedIn. And I'm also streaming this to my student community at Voitanos Learn. So wherever you are connecting from, or whichever way you are connecting and watching this live stream, do me a really big favor. So please just say hi. And number 2, let me know that you can both see me, and you should be able to see my slides actually right there, and that you can both hear me. So I want to make sure everything is good on all these different platforms. Make sure that you're able to get it, that you can hear me, that you can see me. Otherwise, we're going to have an issue. So I want to make sure that all of that is all good. So got one confirmation over here in on Voitanos Learn on Circle. So thank you very much, Bill. I greatly appreciate that. And then, like I said, anybody who is joining me over on LinkedIn Live or on YouTube Live, if you wouldn't mind chiming in and just saying, yep, you can hear me, you can see me. I'm trying something new with my webinar, with these office hours. I'm waiting for those people to come in. Sweet, Erica, thank you very much. And Alex over on YouTube. Awesome. So just wait for somebody on LinkedIn Live to let me know. And don't worry, I'm not waiting. I'm going to keep going because if it's working on all of these other ones, we got to be good. So with that, let me just double check and make sure my audio is correct. Yep, it should be correct. Good on that one. All right. So I'm trying something new now. So I'm going to start streaming my my monthly office hours to all my students here in Voitanos Learn, which is my student community. So you can learn more about that if you go to voitanos.io. You scroll to the bottom of the page. You'll find a link in the footer that says Voitanos Learn. That is where everybody who's a student of my classes has access to. It's where they're gonna access all of the courses that they've signed up for in the past, and it's also where they have the ability to post or get answers to their questions and have discussions and stuff. So I want to make it easy for everybody there to be able to join in. But I'm also streaming this over to LinkedIn Live and YouTube, just if anybody else wants to be able to jump in. The way I structure my office hours, actually, before I do that, I'll talk about it in just a minute. If you have a question around Microsoft 365 Dev that you would like to discuss, drop a comment in the chat for wherever you are connecting from, all right? I will tell you that people who are connecting from my student community in Voitanos Learn that are watching the live stream in my student community, if you have those questions, I'm going to answer those first. Whenever someone in there jumps in, posts a question, they always I'm only going to jump over to LinkedIn and YouTube because when I don't have any questions of Voitanos Learn, because I want to make sure that my students, they're getting all access that they need. Hey, Christian, I see you connecting here from Europe. Awesome. I said hi to Alex and Erica. Awesome. Okay. So, and if you are a student and you don't know what Voitanos Learn is and you haven't gotten in there yet, make sure you reach out to me because you've been sent an invitation back in April, and that's where you can access everything. So before we move too far into this, I've got about an hour to spend with you, so you might as well know who this person is that's going to be talking to you. My name is Andrew Connell. I'm a Microsoft 365 developer. I've been doing this for longer than M365 existed, going back to all the way back to SharePoint portal server development back in 2003. And I've lived in almost every Microsoft 365 development thing that we've had, from SharePoint Framework, where I spent a lot of time over the last 8 years, also doing anything that I need to create or implement my client-side solutions using Microsoft Azure. Spend a bunch of time with SharePoint Embedded. Actually got a little nugget there for you towards the end about SharePoint Embedded. I do a lot of stuff these days with Microsoft 365 Copilot around extending and creating custom agents So happy to talk about that. Got a little bit of an update about that a little bit later. And then I also spend a lot of time around Microsoft Teams app development. In fact, you could consider this like last call for anybody who wants to join my 8-week-long accelerator for it's cohort number 6 of my Microsoft Teams App Dev Accelerator that is going to start tomorrow on September the 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So that is an 8-week-long program. We meet twice a week for 2 hours. Each of those meetings, one of them is a live class that I teach, and one of them is a live office hour where you can get questions. There are still 6 early bird seats available at $1,000 off. If you are interested in registering, and if you're outside, you can go jump on the website right now and take a look at it. So if you're interested, let me just show you that real quick. If you head over to my website, if you just go to, at the very top, go to voitanos.io, go to courses, and you'll see this banner over here on the right-hand side. If you just go there, either click this Explore Live Accelerator, or if you go to Teams and then scroll down, you will see it's the top thing listed. So you can explore the accelerator right here, and you can learn all about it from this page, including like a little video where I go and explain the accelerator. There's a lot of testimonials here from my former students. There's a whole list of everything that we're going to cover over the 8 weeks. What you get for this, and then you can also register by just using this reserve your seat. I will tell you, if you're outside the United States, this is the first time that I am honoring my purchase power parity program, where it will discount based on where you live, and if the gross domestic basically it equalizes how much it costs for you the same way it does for people in the United States. So for example, if you're in India, then you could get a 60% discount off the registration. Now, that is 60% off the registration off the regular registration of $3,500 because I don't stack discount codes. So that is a way that you can save some money if you want to join us. You get all asynchronous coaching included in it, etc. So if you're interested in that, make sure you reach out to me. I'm not going to go talk much more about it during our office hours today because I want to focus on the content. But if you're interested, last day to register. I've got about 9 people in that class, and I've got room for 6 more on the early bird as well. So you've got some information there about how you can contact me on the left. I've been an MVP for 21 years in the Microsoft 365 development space and a bunch of other things associated with that, like SharePoint. Going way, way back, it was Content Management Server. I have a podcast called Code, Deploy, Go Live that I co-host with a good friend of mine, Julie Turner, who's also a MVP in the M365 development space. We got an episode coming out tomorrow. I'm actually going to touch on that during our early part of our office hours today. And then I've got a newsletter where I publish every other week, bi-weekly, every other Tuesday with some basically all the news that you need to keep up on. If you're an M365 dev, there's a lot of it, and it's hard to stay on top of everything. So I give you, here's the short list of all the stuff that I think that you should pay attention to with my quick little blurb of what it is. And then I also go a little bit more in depth on one of those items where I share more detailed like opinions and thoughts and stuff. So it's a great way to keep in touch. You can learn more about my newsletter if you just go to voitanos.io/newsletter, and I'll have some links for you at the very end of this office hours. Okay, how does this work? For those of you who are new or have never seen this before, very briefly, here's what I do. I go through basically what I think are the biggest news items that I think that you should be aware of, and then I'm happy to take your questions. I'm happy to talk. Do we just riff everything we want at the very end? I will be more than happy though to take your questions. I will tell you, I have no questions that have been submitted right now. I say this often, but I will also tell you what usually happens. If nobody submits any questions, I may be done early and we may not stick around for the entire hour. That's perfectly fine with me. I don't want to waste your time. Happy to give you some time back. But I'm also more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So if you've got a question about any of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, or just in general, M365 Dev, I will do the general M365 dev questions. I'll do those, or if they're not related to a news item, I'm going to go over in in my slides here. I will take those at the very end, where I'm going to answer other questions related to the news items I'm going through kind of as they come up. All right. So with that being said, let's get started. Now, I actually have a new thing on here that we didn't have before, which is I've got a general Microsoft 365 section. What goes in here? Hey, it's Microsoft. And in 2025, it's not really Microsoft 365 development if we don't have a bunch of retirements, right? Guess what? Got a couple things on the chopping block. The Microsoft has recently announced the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is going to be fully retired by the end of August 2026. Oh, shoot, that's a typo. In the slide there, it says 2025. That means that should be 2026. Sorry about that. They say the retirement begins beginning of September this year, and then it ends at the end of August next year. I wish they would standardize their naming. Generally, what I think they mean here is that the Microsoft Graph Toolkit has now been deprecated, so they're not going to do anything with it. But it's going to be like fully like we're not going to fix any security issues or anything like that after August of 2026. So that's one. If you want to learn more about this announcement, you can either scan that QR code, the first QR code that you see right here, or just type in that link that you see there right below the QR code. My 2 cents is that, I mean, I'm not surprised they did this. I mean, Microsoft is kind of they're on this kick, especially in the M365 world. They're on this kick of like retiring and killing stuff off that is not directly related to artificial intelligence or Copilot, which I guess same. And they're just killing stuff off. I mean, they've killed off they've laid off a bunch of positions and everything. You've seen probably that in the news. 15 to 20,000 people have been laid off so far this year. I know the 6,000 and the 9,000 tranches that they laid off were the ones that made the big news, but there were lots of little like consistent like hundreds or a couple tens here and a couple hundreds here that were getting laid off that weren't making nearly as much news. But it's unfortunate, but hey, that's their prerogative. They're a company that's got to make money. And so when you spend a bunch of money on AI and hardware and stuff, and you got to show Wall Street that, you still got that same profitability and margins that you had with those Windows and Office licenses, which you don't really have with all those big GPU NVIDIA cards that are going to be trashed in about a year or two, and you have to replace them with equally as expensive ones. Got to save your money somehow. So how do you do it? Reduce headcount. Unfortunate, but at least that's how I see it, how they've been doing it. And that's how they kind of reported it too in their quarterly reports. But I guess that's not officially why they've done it. I shouldn't say that. I'll add that. Anyway, one of the culprits of this, Microsoft Graph Toolkit got deprecated or retired. So what does that mean? So what the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is a suite of like UI components that were dependent upon Microsoft Graph that I could use in my web solutions, my web projects, I could drop them on my web project, and it would allow me to do things like get a profile card for another user in my organization. It would use the Microsoft Graph to get that data, and then it would render that out. So it was kind of like a reusable React component type thing, if you think about it. So what's the big deal if they retire this? Well, I personally don't think it's that big of a deal because they weren't really doing any work on it lately. It's an open source project, or at least the source is open. So it's either open source or source open. Open source meaning we take contributions. Source open meaning, hey, you can see our code, but we're just showing you the code. We're not actually taking contributions. If you're using this a lot and you're like, I'm really afraid that you guys are going to just delete this because I really need this. Well, then I would just say my best recommendation is go fork that repo. Go fork it. Go to their GitHub repo, create your own GitHub account on GitHub and fork it. And now you've got a copy of it. And you could take that and you can improve it. You could fix bugs. You can make changes to it how you see fit. It's not like they're going to delete it. They'll probably take that repo and they'll probably mark it as like archived, which means it's like that's publicly saying we didn't delete it, but we're not watching this anymore. We're not making changes. It's kind of read only. So when you fork it, you basically get a copy of it. All right. I do think this is like a little footnote here. People ask me like, how do I become a Microsoft MVP? Or how do I like do more stuff in the community? How do you get your name out there? You want to get your name out there? Here's a great thing. Fork the MGT, start going in and look at all of their open issues, go start fixing a bunch of the open issues and bugs that people have reported. Take this project over as your, I don't want to say your own, but take it over as being the maintainer of this project. Maybe you can even pitch Microsoft and say like, hey, do you want to just transfer this over to me? I'll take care of this. Or maybe you can even reach out to the Microsoft Patterns and Practices group and say, hey, why don't we make this a PMP project and I will take it over and I'll be the manager for it and I'll recruit other people to join. And that's your community contribution. And so you could make a name for yourself by doing this and building up your personal brand and your visibility. And who knows, somebody may nominate you for all of this work that you're doing for an MVP. If you're at a company and you guys use MGT quite a bit, then you could always go through and pitch your manager and say, hey, boss, if you give me like a couple hours every other week to work on this and to be a maintainer for this, then we could be like the official sponsor of this and everybody else could use it. It would help us get our name out. And maybe if we're like a consultancy, other companies may come to us and go like, wow, look, you're running this project. That number one, we see you're giving back to the community, but number two, you're proving your development chops and we may want to hire you for consulting jobs. So I think it's a big opportunity that Microsoft has kind of thrown out there that somebody could just come in and just be like, cool, thank you, I'll take that, I'll do it. So don't worry, I'm not doing that. I don't feel like I'm a thought leader in the client side design component perspective. I can use and build components, but I'm definitely not going to call myself like a UX person. Okay, I can use those tools that people get. I can use the MGT. I can use libraries like H2O from Stefan Bauer and Julie Turner. I can use the Fabric UI React components, but I'm not going to be one to really build them. I'm not the kind of, I did that in the past with Angular and stuff, but wasn't the best place for me to do it. Hey, Bo, glad you were able to join us on a mountain somewhere. I wonder is that your mountain or is it you on a different mountain? Just a mountain. I won't ask you to pin down like where exactly you are. I just know the pictures are beautiful. I mean, if you want to put your latitude and longitude in there, go for it, but that's a little weird. But I mean, hey, you do you. Also, great post on LinkedIn earlier yesterday about some of the stuff you found about some undocumented APIs. Really cool. Okay, another one is that they've retired, the Microsoft Graph CLI. Same timeline as the toolkit, right? Again, the full retirement is not until the end of August in 2026. So typo on my slide. This second date right here for both of these items should be 2026. I never understood why Microsoft even created this. They've got a PowerShell library that they've published to make that where you can use Microsoft Graph stuff, but there's also a command line interface, right? Oh, more to come, Bo. Now I'm curious. We should get you on the podcast. And I'm serious. That wasn't just like a side comment that when somebody else posted it and I responded on LinkedIn. We seriously should get you on the podcast. Maybe we know somebody who we can convince to get you on. This one though, like what's my take on this? Well, I mean, if you were using this CLI, then, I mean, it's probably same as what we saw with MGT. They're probably not going to delete it. They're probably going to mark it as like archived and read only. And so it's probably going to be fine for a year, maybe two. And then you're just going to be like, wow, what about these new things you guys have added or changed? They're not in the CLI because it's retired. So what I would suggest you do is if you're using this, use the Microsoft, you either use the Graph PowerShell module that they publish, or use the CLI for Microsoft 365, which is an open source project by the Patterns and Practices team and that the community runs. They do a really good job of this. So I'm partial to the CLI because it's cross-platform. I don't even know if the PowerShell one for Graph is cross-platform. I find that pretty much anything PowerShell that has anything to do with Microsoft 365 if it's from Microsoft, it kind of sucks when it comes to cross-platform. Plus, personally, I don't like PowerShell, but that's just a me thing. That's not I don't think anybody, I shouldn't push that on anybody else. But that's just my take on it. I'm curious, do either one of these affect any of you who are watching the stream, or if you tune in late, the recording? I'm really curious to see what you think about that. Are these a big deal to you or not? The other thing is I will mention that there are some changes around the Microsoft Graph and how you can do how with the JavaScript library or the JavaScript SDK, and how they are changing to a newer format of how everything works. If you're interested to learn more, tune into my latest podcast with Julie Turner on the Code Deploy Go Live podcast. It's episode 15. It won't be out until tomorrow, September the 24th, Wednesday, September the 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern, where we kind of talk about some of this stuff. It's a little confusing what they've done, especially when they've switching JavaScript to TypeScript. You're like, oh, that's good. And you're like, hold on a second. Our good friend Bo, who is tuning in over here on LinkedIn Live, I've seen some of the work that he's done. Somebody has shared some of the work that he's kind of discovered, and I'm not so sure I would rush to this new TypeScript library. Good findings, Bo. Again, another reason why I want to get you on the podcast. So, let's see, we got a chat here. Jacob, it says you're not using, so Jacob in Voitonos Learn is saying he's not using either of these, MGT or the CLI for Graph. All good. It's not a problem. Actually, that's good for you. Doesn't affect you. All right, next up, let's talk about some SharePoint Framework stuff. Okay, this may send some people into a tizzy. So, first of all, where are we today? The current version of the SharePoint Framework is version 1.21.1. The big things we got with that are support for Node version 22 and no other support for any other versions of Node. Bumped version of TypeScript to 5.3, and then they say they added support for flexible layouts, which is kind of bogus because there's nothing about 1.22 or 1.21 that actually adds support for it. It's a manifest file change to your web part, so you could technically be on a V1 7-year-old project for a web part that was created with SPFx version 1.0, and you could go make a change to your manifest, and ta-da, you're using you can use those flexible layouts, because the manifest for your component manifest has no versioning baked into it. So it's really got nothing to do with the SharePoint framework. I don't know, they say that. Here's the stuff that may freak you out. So I'm going to talk about what Microsoft has said publicly. So the next version of the SharePoint framework, version 1.22, there's a beta out for it right now. It's estimated to be released sometime in Q4. Now, that means that today's September 23rd, so we've got 7 days-ish until October, and October starts Q4. So this may become pretty soon. What are the changes here? Now, I could riff on this if there's any questions, but if not, I'll riff on it at the end. So first of all, what are they doing? The main thing that's going on with this release, and you may have seen other stuff referenced with this release on some things they're doing, but the only thing that I expect to see in this release is changes to the build pipeline. So what's changing? They're getting rid of gulp, and they're switching over to a build toolchain that is going to leverage Heft, Rush Stack, or Rush, which is also, you can think of it as Rush Stack, and Webpack. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. Part of that, this update, is also allowing them, or they're also doing it, they're also making a big update to all of the NPM packages that they are releasing, or that are part of the dependency tree. So what you will see, they are referencing this as an NPM audit, right? I don't think that's a good way to look at it. I don't agree with how they're describing it, but that's why I have my own stream and they have their own. Basically what they're doing is they're updating a lot of dependencies that their own packages depend on. And what that'll do is that should reduce, not eliminate, but that should reduce a lot of the NPM packages that are reporting a bunch of like vulnerabilities and being deprecated and stuff like that, because they should be using newer versions. I say should because the betas don't show I don't think they show that significant of a change. I've kind of argued to them that they probably don't want to talk about this and just kind of say, hey, look, this is a benefit. You should see a reduction or a moderate reduction. But I don't expect like, oh my God, they're gone. You're going to still see issues with that. So what is up with this whole like heft, rush, and Webpack setup? So today in our build toolchain, we use Gulp and Webpack. So Gulp is our task runner to do things like a build, run all of like the TypeScript compilation and CSS and Sass file compilation down to CSS and building the modules and etc. It is also a way for us to use, we also use that to build, call Webpack, which it generates a Webpack configuration on the fly and then calls Webpack with that configuration. And Webpack will then go through all the files that have been compiled, the output of those, and it will create the JavaScript bundles. It does basically two things. It creates the JavaScript bundles for each of our different components. And then it also creates the manifest that the SharePoint framework is going to use to load all the dependencies in the client at runtime. So it says things like, hey, this web part needs jQuery and data tables to be loaded, but you got to do jQuery first, and then you got to load data tables. And then here's all these other dependencies like SP component base and stuff like that from the SPFx runtime that have to be loaded on the page before my web part gets loaded. So that's what Webpack does. It's the thing that generates the bundles it generates the bundles and the manifest that will then be used by the module loader in the browser, system.js, that the SPFx runtime manages. Okay, so that's how it used to work. What they're doing is they're getting rid of Gulp. They're moving away from it, which a lot of the world is doing that. So I'm not too disappointed in that. And they're moving to this Hesh and Rush. Hesh. I keep saying Hesh. Heft and Rush stack. What Rush is a Microsoft created open source mono repo that Microsoft has created that they need. In my opinion, they created it because they thought that they had a better idea of how to solve like a bunch of issues we had in the Node/npm ecosystem. That's what they did. And Rush goes way, way back, many, many years. What Heft is essentially the replacement, a replacement for Gulp as like the task runner. So when you used to do Gulp build or Gulp bundle, you will now say Heft build. All right. And they actually are getting rid of the bundle there, or we won't have two commands of build and bundle. It looks like they're going to compress it down to one to just say Heft build. And that will essentially be the same thing as running Gulp build, Gulp bundle, right? Actually, if you ran Gulp bundle, it ran build as well. So you never really had to run build. They still use Webpack under the covers to do all this stuff. Now, why are they doing that? Microsoft will say why they're doing it. They'll explain why they're trying to modernize the tool chain. They're trying to move in the right direction and give developers more flexibility, etc. My take on this, or my concern with this, is that this is a change that they're doing because they needed to do it for them. They made a change in the build toolchain a couple of years ago, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but basically we had this build toolchain that so much of Microsoft used. The SharePoint Framework guys said, we have an idea, so they split it. And then they went to go maintain their own while the rest of Microsoft was using this, and they kind of went like this. And now they realize, oh crap, this is going to be hard to maintain all this. So we're going to go through and we got to put it back together. And not only putting it back together, part of this is the putting it back together, but the other part of this is they say this is going to be a more flexible way to do builds. I think that they're doing it because they have trouble with their existing toolchain configuration for their first party projects that they use to create web parts. And because we're using the same tool chain and tool set that they use, we are going to get that change is going to trickle down to us as third-party developers. Personally, I don't really care for the Heft and Rush stack. I don't care for the ones that they're using. In fact, if you go look at the state of JavaScript survey, It's a very popular survey that's done every year. You will see Heft and Rush are like used by nobody in the community. There, I mean, if you like from Microsoft, like maybe Microsoft uses it, but nobody else uses it. Like seriously, nobody else uses it. And the like I think the usage is around like 2% of either one of these. So RushStack is basically a mono repo solution, and Heft is like a tool chain kind of solution, like a task runner. And I think some of the comments here that Bo's posting in LinkedIn, he said he doesn't understand why we're still using RushStack. I understand why. I just disagree with it. We should have to. I mean, we're using it because Microsoft wants to use it, and they put all this time into creating RushStack. I mean, to me, my first question when I saw this was, why aren't we just switching over to using something like Turbo Repo or workspaces like NPM and PNPM offer? Or there used to be one called Lerna that was really popular that got, or whoever, I don't know if Lerna was done by a group and the group was bought, or it was done by a company and the company was bought. But there's a company called Narwhal. It's by one of the original Angular guys at Google, and then he went and formed his own company called Narwhal. And they have a monorepo called NX, like Nancy X-ray. So NX, NX, NPM workspaces, Turbo Repo. Those are all good and very popular. And when I say popular, like they're all around like the 30 to 40% usage of people who use monorepos in terms of market share. RushStack is like down at like 2%. Nobody uses it. So I like what Bo said here in LinkedIn. He said, Rush is super opinionated. I agree. It's very opinionated. It has this whole concept of like rigs, and it allows you to like define plugins and then have configuration for those plugins. I mean, I understand the approach, but it's really opinionated. Like it gives you a way to go do like, dependency management. It is, Bo's right. Dependency management is fine, but it's complex considering alternatives that exist, in my opinion, and mine too, Bo. I'm right there with you, 100%. I think that what they've done just doesn't, I'm not a big fan of what they've done. But whatever. We're stuck with it. I voiced my opinion. We'll see where it goes. So the thing that I'm really interested though to see how this changes is we used the way that we modified our gulp configurations with SPFx. We did that using gulp. So what happens today in like 1.21.1 and going all the way back to the beginning of SharePoint Framework was when we would build the project or do a bundling phase, the build toolchain would generate the Webpack configuration in memory. And then in the gulp file, we could hook into it and say, give me the Webpack config. And then I could mutate the configuration to make my changes to it and then return that back. And then when SPFx, the SPFx build toolchain called Webpack, it gave it the new mutated web config that I was going to use. If gulp is gone, how do we do that? Now, I know the answers right now, but we're still in the betas, and so I don't want to get too deep into it right now because things are fluid a little bit, but you just want to pay attention to this because I believe this is going to be a huge change. And if you have done anything to your build toolchain, this is going to totally require you to make changes to your build tool, to your projects in order to upgrade them to 1.22. The good news is there's nothing, I don't expect there to be anything in 1.22 except for the build toolchain changes. So we'll have time and the cadence that they run their releases on. I mean, you might even have a year, but realistically, you may have like 6 months. I see Wes over here says, on LinkedIn says, it feels frustrating that energy is deep in the toolchain rather than fixing the higher level things and gaps in SharePoint Framework. 100%. I totally agree with you. We're focusing on the wrong stuff. So this has been an issue for a long time. And the things we've been asking, it's like, fix this, fix this, fix this. Like, cool, we're going to fix it. I'm like, not like that. That's kind of my attitude. Like, don't use that. If you're going to switch to a whole new tool chain and stuff like that, can we move to Heft? Or sorry, not Heft, that's what I meant. Can we move to Vite? Other people at Microsoft are using Vite. The Teams toolkit, Agents toolkit uses Vite. Whatever. We'll see where it goes. I'd love to know what you think about this. Bo and Wes, thank you very much for chiming in on LinkedIn. Anybody here in Voitanos Learn, you want to jump in, chime in, let me know. Anybody on YouTube Live, chime in. Let me know what you think about this. I'm sure that this is going to be a topic at my next office hours in October that we do. and maybe even a full-blown webinar because of it. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So that's everything I want to talk about with the SPFx. If you got a question about this, post it in the chat. I'll come back to it towards the end because I don't have any nobody's posted a question yet, so you could be jumping right at the front of the line. Now let's talk about what's new in Microsoft Teams. Oh, there's nothing. Okay, cool. So let's go talk about now what's new with Microsoft 365 Copilot. And guess what's new? Well, stuff is changing all the time, but, well, as far as development goes, not much. The only thing that's really changed is Microsoft announced a renaming. I mean, come on. It's not Microsoft 365 until they rename something every few months. I'm of the opinion now that they might as well have like those little labels we have on like stuff like milk or egg or cheese in the grocery store. It's like best if used by whatever. I think we need to have that for product names in Microsoft 365. So, and Power Platform, I guess. Best if used by whatever the date is right before Ignite starts, or whatever the date is right before the Microsoft Build Conference starts, or if they do like a Wave 2 event or something, right? Use that, and then the name will change. Well, Microsoft buried a name change. I only saw this announced, not in a blog post. I only saw it announced as a LinkedIn post by somebody in the marketing group on the Copilot Studio team that they are renaming what is called Agent Builder. Agent Builder is if you went into Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. So if you went into the Teams app, right? Or the m365.cloud.microsoft, or like, which is the new location if you went to office.com and got 17 redirects and landed at m365.cloud.microsoft. Over on the panel, when you want to create a new agent, if you clicked on create an agent, what that would do is that would launch Agent Builder. They've now renamed Agent Builder to Copilot Studio Lite. Well, that's actually what we always used to call it, right? Because Agent Builder was Copilot Studio, but it was just you had a very limited feature set. You had a little bit more than what you had with SharePoint agents, but you had less than what you can do with Copilot Studio. So what are you going to call Copilot Studio now? Oh, this is the full experience. So we have a light experience and a full experience. And if that's not confusing enough, go into Copilot today, click Create an Agent, and look in the upper left corner. And what you're going to see is it's going to say Copilot Studio, not Copilot Studio Lite, not Copilot Studio Full, just Copilot Studio. So what do customers think? It's Copilot Studio, but it's not. It's Copilot Studio Lite. Can I upsize my Copilot Studio Lite agent over to Copilot Studio Full? How do I get more features added to it? It's just confusing, guys. So look, this is 100% a marketing change, a renaming change. There is absolutely no functionality that's new, nothing, no limitations change. It's the exact same thing. We just got to go through and have another announcement just to keep on the AI announcement bandwagon and rename something. So this is just basically moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic while everybody else is in line for the boats. So, all right, lifeboats, I mean. Everybody's always already on the boat. Titanic, get it? Don't tell me it's too soon. I don't know. Curious what you guys think about this. Not a big deal to me, but it's news, so I just want to make sure you're aware of it. That link is going to take you to the LinkedIn post that I'm referring to. QR code takes you there as well. That'll take you to the LinkedIn post, and that will also take you, which will also have references in that post to one or two document management things. One or two things in the Learn documentation for Copilot Studio that explains like, here's how you choose if you're going to be using Copilot Studio or Copilot Studio Lite or Full, which they've got this like chart. And they go, we have this chart we're really proud of it. Help you make the design decisions. And then you get to the very end and it's like going, if you need RBAC, and I'm like, let me get this straight. You're talking to people using Copilot Studio, which are technically low code people or makers. At least that's how you advertise it. And you think they know what RBAC is? You don't spell that out? I don't know. I'm a little frustrated. I think that the Copilot Studio guys don't really know who their audience is at Microsoft. I think that Microsoft, the people on the Copilot Studio team, I think that they don't really know who their audience is. They say it's for low code and information workers and knowledge workers and stuff. But I mean, you ask anybody, a lot of people that I end up working with all say like, oh, this is so complicated on how to build these things. And then I look at some stuff like, oh, it's low code, and you kind of open up what you're doing. It's like a Power App. And it's like, that looks like algebra with regular expressions. Like that, with all due respect, Microsoft calls it pro code, but I write code like JavaScript, TypeScript. I've seen some stuff in Power Apps. I'm like, well, it's a hell of a lot easier. I'll show you how to do this in code. Before you freak out, trust me, it's a hell of a lot easier. So that's just my take. I see Christian over here on YouTube says, when did Microsoft start to hate developers? Let me clarify what you're saying, Christian. This is all in the Microsoft 365 world. I don't think you don't see the same thing across Microsoft in like the .NET world and the Azure world. Outside of Microsoft 365, the rest of Microsoft that is not so much in the 365 dev side is, I think that I think that they get it. I just don't think that development it's never really been a core competency, I think, on the Microsoft 365 dev side. There's a lot of things I thought it's been really good, but in terms, when I mean a core competency, I mean like really being a focus with 365. It seems like a lot of the stuff that they end up doing is very half-hearted. And it's a lot of what I see. I mean, I could go on a huge rant about, and I'll actually have a webinar coming up about this that I'll show you in a few minutes, but I think that Microsoft is, they're being very disingenuous when they talk about how you can create agents and what your options are. And you show customers, hey, there's this other option that they never tell you about. And it's fully supported. In fact, they give us tools to do it, but they never talk about it. So, and customers are like, what? That's what I want. I'm like, well, it's easy to do it. It's not hard. Okay, so that's that. Now, I got time for questions. I see Wes said on LinkedIn, until packaging and configuration becomes mature in Power Platform, this is an internal team only type thing. I don't disagree, but I also I've seen stuff that they work on, and I see like how, I think that, Power Apps is one thing, and I think they're trying to get more into I've seen them, they released something a month or two ago called Code App, Power Apps Code Apps, or PACA, or PACAs. At least I'm calling them PACAs. I look at this and I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. So you want to give information workers the ability to create basically React apps that can leverage Power Platform connectors to get data and interact with stuff. Okay, cool. But it's a React app. Okay, cool. That I'm going to package up inside of a Power App. Okay. And it's going to run inside of the Power Platform environment. Okay. What if I need to do more advanced stuff? Like, what if this is a great proof of concept and I need to take it to the next level? And they're like, oh, well, you just go back in and make some additional edits to it. I'm like, well, no. What if I need to get what if a developer needs to get involved to have it talk to a REST API that requires OAuth authentication? So I need to authenticate, get a token, and be able to call that external API to do some work with my, one of my back-end systems, like an ERP system or a sales and ticketing system. And they're like, oh, no, you wouldn't do that with this. So this is a dead end. And they're like, no, it's not a dead end. You can definitely make changes to it. But I just asked you that, and you said you couldn't do that unless you just went back in and kept vibe coding with it. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, have you talked to enterprises about this? I don't get it. I see that they're doing it. Just, I don't get it. And I know this may come across as when he's a developer, he doesn't like any of the Power Platform stuff. That's not true at all. I mean, personally, it's not my jam, but that doesn't mean I'm against it. I think that each tool is good for, I think when you look at the different options that are available to, I think you have to look at it from a perspective of who's the target audience that's building it, who's the target audience that's using it, and then what kinds of enablement, what kinds of capabilities do I need? And then fourth thing is, what limitations can I not deal with? And when some of the first two questions will start to push you towards one tool set, like Power Apps or Power App Code Apps or Copilot Studio, or we'll push you in the other direction of like VS Code, stuff like that, like Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, or using the Agents Toolkit in Visual Studio Code. And then you look at, okay, but here's a capability that I need to have. And does the thing I'm going towards, does it have that capability or not? And should I consider the other way? Or does it have a limitation that I can't deal with? And I want to go with one of the other options that does not have that limitation. So I think it's very much a discussion. The problem is that I see is that Microsoft basically they like 90% of everything just says go Copilot Studio or go Power Apps, and without actually having a conversation with the customer about here's how you make these decisions. Everything I see is just like going, if you go to VS Code, it's all like pro code. You got to write code for this. Like if I want to build a declarative agent instead of using Copilot Studio, if I want to use VS Code with the Agents Toolkit to build a declarative agent, I would argue that that is low code because it's just text and JSON. And they're like, well, yeah, but sometimes you're going to be using YAML. Like you did the same thing. You're going to be importing that and doing the same thing over in Copilot Studio. Yeah, but if you need a custom REST API, you're going to have to write that for your declarative agent. Same thing is true with Copilot Studio. If you're going to call REST API and it doesn't exist, you're going to have somebody create it. Probably isn't going to be the person creating the agent in that case. Probably going to go get a developer to do it. If I'm building a declarative agent, I'm going to get somebody who has development skills to go create that REST API that I would want to end up calling. But it's not like packaged with the declarative agent. So, I mean, don't tell me it's only for pro code developers. So I think their documentation is very misleading and disingenuous. It's my take on it. That's why it's my office hours and not the Microsoft office hours. Okay, so I got these questions. I see Bo said something. I saw Wes, Bo, and Kashitz. Is that right? Kashitz Gupta. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but I see a couple things here. So I will show your questions here at the bottom in LinkedIn, but I will come back to all of these in just a minute. Let me kind of blow through a couple little closing things, and then we can spend time just riffing on a couple different things here. All right. So first, I just want to give you, first I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I'm not going to wrap up now. We're going to go back to questions, and I'll go all the way to the top of the hour. So if you want to find me, how can you find me? I've got the first 3 light colored background links you see there. Those are the social media platforms that I'm most active on. LinkedIn, YouTube, not just videos on YouTube, but also community posts as well. And then I'm also active on Blue Sky. And if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, it's free. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe, one click at the bottom of every email. Very quickly. I can't, it's immediate. It's not one of those like, this will take 7 to 10 days to take effect. No, it's immediate. So you can go subscribe there. You can also see some of my previous newsletters to get a feel for it if you like. And then that's also my podcast, codedeploy.go live. It's a video podcast, but also available as a audio feed as well. Videos available on YouTube, our YouTube channel, the Code Deploy Go Live YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify. And then I've got we have audio feeds for just about every pod catching app that is out there. In fact, I don't know of one that we are not using today. So it's on all of them. Apple Podcast, Overcast, it's everywhere. You won't miss it. Okay, I want to touch on a couple things here really quick. I got 2 free webinars coming up in the next 2 months. Probably have another one, but we'll hold off on that for a bit. One of them is if you're interested in SharePoint Embedded, I have a webinar coming up about a month from now on October the 14th. You can register for it at that link. QR code will take you to that link, or the link at the bottom will also take you there. So you can register for that. I'll explain what SharePoint Embedded is. Equally as important, what it is not. I see a lot of confusion around what this is. Think if I've ever wanted to build an app and I've wanted to store documents, but I want to put them in a SharePoint document library so I can get all of the ECM and versioning and purview and security stuff around those documents. But I don't want there to be a web interface that any users can get to. And I would also like to do this for a web app that where people don't have to have a license to access the content. That's what SharePoint Embedded is. Basically, it's a way for you to use document libraries for your app, for storing content in your app. So there's that. Also, I have another webinar coming up. I think it's in November. Yes, November 11th. That is about type spec, which is another way to create declarative agents in Visual Studio Code. This is currently in release preview. I've got some articles about this on my site if you're interested. But essentially what type spec is it's a DSL, a domain-specific language that you can write to get a richer and more productive developer experience when you're creating your declarative agent, instead of writing all that JSON and YAML files. Type spec is a language that all of Azure uses to write the definition and the description for all of their REST APIs. And then from there, they end then writing the code that implements the REST API. So Microsoft is using this for helping us create declarative agents. When you compile your project, very similar to how like JavaScript compiles to, where TypeScript compiles to JavaScript, type spec will compile down to JSON and YAML files. In fact, you can think of type spec as like equivalent to Bicep. So Bicep is a DSL for Azure ARM templates, Azure Resource Manager templates for creating resources. Type spec is a DSL for all those JSON files that we use in declarative agents. Okay, so with that being said, our next office hours is going to be on October the 21st, which is the third Wednesday of October. And I'm sure we'll have a bunch of stuff to talk about at that office hour session. Now with that, let me jump back and let's handle some of these questions that we've got here. So I'm going to go back, answer. I've got about 8 or 9 minutes. So tackling a couple of these different questions. So I did see Wes, I'll put this one up. These questions all came to me on LinkedIn. I don't see on LinkedIn, all these questions came on LinkedIn Live. I don't see any questions inside of Voitanos Learn or on YouTube Live. So if you guys do have questions, now's the time to put those questions in there if you want me to tackle those. So Wes started, the upskilling ramp on Power Platform packaging is pretty vertical. I don't disagree. I guess it's not a question, it's more of a comment. I don't disagree with that. The upskilling for Power Platform, I mean, it's not as design. I mean, it's a designer like type experience, but I don't think it's as simple as other low code tools or no code tools that are out on the market for creating apps. That's just my 2 cents, like a Replit or something like that. I think they require a little bit more skill. Super powerful though, very popular from Microsoft, very popular way to go through and create apps. A lot of people really like it, but it's just an option. I just think you need to be aware of that. Maybe it may not be exactly what you want. So just pay attention to that. Bo had a comment here. He said that he wasn't sure that a Power Apps Code Apps is targeted for information workers, though with the push towards vibe coding, nothing surprises me anymore. So you may be right. I think that Microsoft, like trying to do this vibe coding thing, is really pushing coding. Microsoft is trying to, or I think a lot of people are, pushing the vibe coding thing on anybody can build an app and I can vibe this out. I don't know. I've seen a bunch of pretty funny memes where, you know, people are like, my only job is cleaning up vibe coded apps as a developer. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of frustration with it. That it's like, hey, I built this app and I did it in just like 10 minutes. I'm like, does it work? And like, no, it doesn't work, but it's beautiful. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm not saying that it's a crappy solution, but I think that it's a little overblown on what you can do. To me, I'm kind of like, if you're vibe coding an app and it's writing a ton of code for you and you don't have like an engineering background or mindset, engineering/developer engineering or mindset, and you're not looking at the code and validating it's doing what you think it's doing, I mean, buyer beware or viber beware. I have a Tesla. I had the auto driving. I've had it since day one. I can guarantee you for damn sure it's almost killed me a few times. So there's no like, oh, you can just turn your autopilot on and it just takes you everywhere you're going to go and you can do whatever you want. I'm like, I mean, if I wanted to live, not really. If I wanted it to wreck and scratch the hell out of my car, sure, I could do that. So I don't know. So Kashizit said, what are my thoughts on SharePoint and SPFx versus Power Pages? And I see that Bo responded with he wouldn't compare them because SPFx is for internal applications. Power Pages is for external portals to your business data using Dataverse. I think that's a good comparison or a good comment on this. I don't think that I don't think it's one or the other because like Bo said, SPFx, like SharePoint is not an internet facing solution. It is an internal it's an internal solution or for guest users in your tenant. It is not a solution for making like internet accessible. Like Bo says, Power Pages is more for external things where you have business data that you want to expose to your end users. So I don't think if you're looking at that, I don't think those are your two options. To me, I think your alternative, if you look at like SPFx, I think the two options you have are, am I going to build an app using the SharePoint framework for SharePoint Online, or am I going to build a Teams app that is also a web app that is going to be deployed and used inside of Microsoft Teams, which both of those options have the ability to use each other inside the other platform. So I can have a SharePoint framework web part that is used as a tab in Teams, and I can have a tab in Teams that is used as a web part in SharePoint Online. There's a lot of caveats to all that, and I don't think that that's very reliable, so I wouldn't recommend anybody do either one of those things. But those would be two fair comparisons. I don't think that Power Pages and SPFx is something I would compare. Right now, this is my last question. Nobody's posted another question here, so I got a question here from Wes Hackett again. So Wes says, it's more of a comment. There's no obvious entry for a vendor to learn how to package a commercial offering. I think you're referring back to what you said earlier about Power Platform. And I agree, there's really no good packaging story for Power Platform. I do think, so we had a really good conversation with Wes Preston on our podcast. Let me see really quick what code deploy go live. Let me see which episode that was. That was episode number 13 of our podcast, where we talked about both Power App code apps, but we also talked about different environments. And one of the things that Wes Wes Hackett, here's what we talked about with Wes Preston, was the fact that you have these different environments of like a dev test or dev test QA production that you can do in the Power Platform. That does make things a little more like I could package it and deploy it to a customer. But in the Microsoft 365 world, it's weird how like environments are never discussed when it comes to anything where you're using any of the Power Platform stuff over in an M365 scenario, where there is no like packaging deployed to different environments. You just kind of have like one. So I think that's a little weird. And same thing with Dataverse as well, like with that. So I think that is one challenge that a lot of us run into. I just think that we have like, you get some like kind of weird stuff with that. So I don't disagree with you though, that I think that the whole concept of like building Power Apps and deploying them to your customer. Same thing with Power Automate. Like every time I've wanted to go through and do a Power Automate and get a contractor involved, I have to get a license for that person for a month or two to get them to do the work in my tenant, so that they can come in and they can do the work. Or like, oh, just give me your account. I'm like, good luck, no way. So, yeah, it's not really a platform. It's more intended for like internal work. And if you bring a consultant in, you're bringing the consultant in to do that work in your tenant. So they can't like do it on their own, package it up, and then deploy it. They can, but not as easily. Because it's just not how the platform is originally designed. There's some stuff that I think that they have added over the years to make it a little bit more like that, but it's not really built for that, in my opinion. Okay. That brings us to the top of the hour. Oh my gosh, within about 20 seconds. One person is watching this and they're like, are you seriously going to be able to stop it on time? Yes, Bill, I got it. And I know you don't nag me about it. It's just our little like inside joke. Okay, I've got no other questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our office hours. I'm curious, hey, look, my next office hours are going to be October the 21st of, it's October 21st of October. So make sure you come back and you join me for those and for that office hours. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments wherever you're watching this. Again, this will be available to you. Definitely watch the live stream. You can watch the recording of it on YouTube. It'll be available right away. And I hope to see everybody in October. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you got something out of this. And if you liked it and you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Helps me find other people, reach other people as well, just like you. And if you're on LinkedIn Live, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn Live. And if you are in Voitanos Learn, let me know if you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked being able just to watch it here instead of watching it going out to one of those other platforms. All right. Later, everybody.